What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. And this one is some early thoughts ahead of the Game Week 22 deadline. So I'm going to go through some key players that I think are worth talking about. I'm also going to go through the blank and double Game Week schedule, a very long way out from the actual blanks and doubles, but also talk about how that might fit in with chip strategy. It's a very broad overview because we don't have a huge amount of information right now, but so many people have been asking me questions about it. I thought I'd talk through it in this one, and I'm going to go through some early thoughts on my own team. So let's get into it. So let's start with Thiago. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about the fact that he'd had no shots against Leeds and Wolves. Now we're sat here after the last two games where he scored 5 goals. And by the way, there was no penalties involved with any of those goals either. So 5 open play goals. All of a sudden, he looks like a great pick again moving forward. 7.1 million, so not that expensive. Basically plays 90 minutes every game. I know he got subbed early against Sunderland around the 80th minute, but I think that was because they were 3-0 up. He basically took a bit of a knock, got some treatment, came back on, looked fine to be honest, but they were 3-0 up. Why not give him some rest? And also the games had been quite quick turnaround at that point. So I think he's fine moving forward. I think he'll play close to 90 minutes most games, and he's on penalties, which is an added bonus. And I think outside of Haaland, he is probably the next best forward to own. And I actually don't think there's a great argument against that. There are some arguments, but I don't think they're that great. Like Ekitike is obviously amazing if he's fit for Burnley at home, but long term, I still question the price. I just think in terms of your overall FPL squad structure, it will probably look a little bit better to not have a forward that's priced like Ekitike or Watkins, like close to 9 million, both of them, neither on penalties. So I don't particularly like them with the way that FPL's gone this season. You know, defensive contributions, midfielders and defence, and midfielders in general just offering really good value, the likes of Rice, Bruno Guimaraes, etc. Right? There's a lot of good midfielders, not so much with forwards. So Watkins and Ekitike for me just a bit too expensive. Mateta, Bowen, they're all fine, but I don't think any of them are better. I mean, to be honest, right, I think you could make an argument to say Mateta is better because of the fixtures they've got coming up and the fact he's also on penalties, but Thiago's also a bit cheaper. So he's just a nice option to have in your squad. If you want to go 4-5-1, 5-4-1, 2 really cheap forwards, I think that can work as well. But Thiago just looks great. So if you've got him, you're probably not selling. I have considered doing Thiago to a really cheap forward and Cunha to Palmer, but I'm not sure I want to make that decision right now. I think that's quite a big decision in terms of my FPL squad to like kind of restructure a little bit. And having 2 cheap forwards is not something I do very often. Maybe never, to be honest. So I don't really want to make that decision this week, and I'll talk a bit more about Palmer later on. So if you've got him, you'll probably keep him. Chelsea away is not great, but then Forest at home is pretty good. And to be honest, Villa away in 24, if I've got to play a nailed-on 90-minute penalty taker against Villa away from home, whatever, right? It's fine. So I think he looks okay. Would I buy him this week? Despite all the things I've said, probably not. Unless you're in dire need of a forward this week. Like, it is Chelsea away. I'm playing him because my alternatives are Paquetá against Spurs away or Senesi against Brighton away. Not great. I would not be surprised if he blanks in this game. So I probably wouldn't chase after the 5 goals last 2 games. Chelsea away is difficult. So if you don't need a forward this week, just wait and see if you feel like you want him in Game Week 23. Ultimately, 4 of the next 5 fixtures are Chelsea away, Villa away, Newcastle away and Arsenal at home. It's not a great fixture run. I think it's perfectly reasonable to keep him. If you want to put him on wildcard, that's fine. If you want to buy him in 23, that's okay too. But it's not an amazing fixture, and I wouldn't chase. He's not going to score 5 goals in the next 2 games, right? It's just not going to happen. He can still be good value without that, by the way, but I don't think he's necessarily worth buying this week. So don't go out of your way to do that. I don't really have too much more to say. Keep him, probably don't buy him. He's arguably the second best forward outside of Haaland. I think also, I don't know how to articulate this without coming across as super captain hindsight, so I'm going to apologise in advance. And obviously, we've got very lucky. Like, if you didn't make the Thiago to Ekitike move, there's a huge amount of luck involved. Ekitike gets injured, but also only gets 1 assist against Wolves and Leeds. And Thiago smashes 5 goals in 2 games. There's a huge amount of luck, right? And in fact, it's not even about the Thiago to Ekitike move. It's just about how people talked about Thiago after those Leeds and Wolves games. The 0 shots. He's had 0 shots. He's had no shots. We got to get rid of him. I would always think about what the most likely thing to happen next is. Is a number 9, who's done pretty well already this season, going to continue to have 0 shots every game? Or at some point, is he going to have a shot? it's probably more likely he's going to have a shot. And I said at the time, so it's not complete hindsight, because I said this at the time, he hasn't suddenly become a completely terrible pick. And I think that's something that I always, and I know people get sick of hearing it in videos. Yeah, you could probably buy this player if you wanted to, or you could just not. You could keep this player or you could sell them. But honestly, with FPL, that is so often the case. Like, Thiago didn't just become a super terrible pick. He was still an okay pick that had a couple of bad games. And I would always try and think about what's the most likely to happen. And again, that is in some ways massively hindsight, because had he not scored 5 goals in the last 2 games, I wouldn't be saying that. But I remember saying at the time, he hasn't become terrible. Thiago to Ekitike is a perfectly reasonable move, but Thiago hasn't become a terrible pick. And the same thing happened last year with Mbeumo. He went like 4 games with 0 XG or something like that. And it's like, you have to get rid, you have to get rid. And again, for some people, it made sense to sell him, but it's also okay to keep these players. And that will happen a lot in FPL. Like, basically, your only hope in FPL is to make good picks and then hope they score points and you get lucky. And that's what's happened here. We've got very, very lucky. And we should acknowledge that, but it was also okay to keep him. Like, people always have extreme reactions to everything. Like, sometimes I see clips of stuff on social media, and it's like, this player's blankly sell them, then they score, and the next week the clip is, you got to buy them. That's not a great way to play, I don't think. Again, I know that comes across as super captain hindsight, but my takeaway would be, you don't have to have extreme opinions all the time. Players don't become absolutely essential or absolutely awful overnight, and that applies with Thiago. And yes, I know it was lucky to get 5 goals. You don't need to tell me. So as I've just briefly mentioned him there, let's talk about Cole Palmer next. 10.4 million with a sea of green fixtures coming up. So the next 2 are Brentford at home in 22, then Palace away in 23. After that, it's West Ham at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home. If you were hand-picking a 4-game week run, it wouldn't be far off what Chelsea have got 24 to 27. You'd probably make the Wolves game at home. And I know some people will argue that Leeds are looking good right now, so that's a tough fixture. But I don't think there's that many fixtures on paper that are easier than Leeds at home. So overall, 24 to 27 looks great. Should you rush in to buy him this week? Maybe. I think in terms of the minutes, there's a bit of positivity to be had. So his last 3 matches, 74, 90, 62. And actually, he started the last 5. So it's 74 minutes, then 90, 62, 71, 79. So I think it is quite positive that he came through the last 3 matches with no injury issues. Bearing in mind the groin problem he had, bearing in mind it's over Christmas, so the games come quite quickly. So that is a positive sign. My short summary would be, if you've got a good route to him, which only takes 1 or 2 transfers and you're not selling another good player, I'd be tempted to go there right now while his ownership is quite low and he's, quite a big differential. And although I wouldn't have Brentford at home, Palace away as green fixtures, it's not terrible either. So I think 1 or 2 transfers, if it doesn't completely hurt your structure, if it's not blocking you from doing anything more interesting soon, I would probably get him in. If you're like me, you're not quite sure the best way to fund him, you don't necessarily want to use all your transfers to get him for Brentford at home. You'd rather wait until game week 24. I also think that's completely fine. And that goes basically back to what I was saying just a minute ago. There's always many options in FPL. For some people, this might make sense to go early. For others, it might not. I do not for 1 second right now, at the time of recording at least, think that he's essential. Because although he has started all these games, there's only 1 90-minute game in there. This is not the same Cole Palmer as we saw kind of last season at the beginning or the season before, where he's playing 90 minutes every single game. He's only got past the 79th minute once in the last 5. And also, by the way, do not, in my opinion, make an early transfer here, because they've got an FA Cup match, which he'll probably get rested for, but they also have a Carabao Cup semi-final first leg against Arsenal. So he's got 2 matches to potentially play before he plays that Brentford game. My main thinking is that I'd rather just wait until 24, because like I said, I'm not quite sure what to do. And also that gives me a ton of information in terms of his minutes, because Chelsea still have, like I said, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Champions League games as well. They're going to want to finish top 8 to avoid having another 2 Champions League games. So it might be that if he does need to be managed later on, he actually misses some of those Premier League games. That's why I don't think that he's completely essential, but he is a massive differential right now. Not many people own him. So it all depends how easy you can get to him. For me, for example, I'm gonna talk about my team a bit later, but I'll just do this really quickly. I would probably want to go. I personally wouldn't do Saka to Palmer. I know it feels like Saka's been super disappointing. I think it's just a bit early to do that. So Cunha would probably be my route. And to do Palmer in, I've either got to sell Thiago to someone like Mane, which I'm not completely against, but I just don't think I can sell Thiago right now. It just feels like super bad timing with the next 3 fixtures. They're not amazing, but like he's just a good pick. So I don't really want to get rid of him. Or I've got to make two other moves. So I've got 3 free transfers. I could afford to do it, but I'd have to do something like, I don't know, Van Dijk. I mean, I don't want to sell Van Dijk before Burnley at home, to be honest. That would just be a bit crazy. I basically got to free up 2.3 million. So unless I sell Saka or Foden, I've got to use 2 free transfers. So I just don't think it's worth it for a Cole Palmer I'm not completely sure about. So massive differential. I'll be honest, getting to game week 24 and avoiding him, I think is really difficult because of the fixtures they've got. So getting in early is not a problem, but it's not essential. Right? He hasn't played amazingly since he's come back. There are obviously some doubts over his fitness, despite the fact he started the last 5. It's okay to wait, but I know some people out there that can do Cunha to Palmer in one move, and it's not really blocking anything else. I'd be super tempted to do that. Honestly, what was the fuss about Phil Foden? It's now 5 blanks in a row. If you picked him up for the West Ham game, I think it was game week 17, you must be absolutely raging to have not had a single return from him. I only got him 1 game before that. Palace away, I think it was. He scored a goal. I think he got defensive contributions and 11 points. So I've had 1 return in 6 game weeks. It's not been great at all. And he has gone down in price again last night. So he's down to 8.7 million. People have had enough. For me, and by the way, you could throw it back in my face what I said about Thiago just a minute ago, about how we change our opinions in quite an extreme way sometimes. It did feel at the time like Foden was almost essential with those double-digit hauls every week. Like 4 weeks in a row, he hit double figures. I mean, the reality was, the most likely outcome was the points would dry up a little bit. Although I will say, I think this is a bit of an extreme outcome. Like, fair enough, he's not going to get 10 plus points every week. But for him to get 0 returns in the last 5, I'm not sure that would happen again if we replayed those 5 matches. He's been a bit unlucky to not get a single return. So I still think it was a perfectly reasonable move at the time. And obviously, because he's a midfielder, there's lots of other players to move to, which I quite like. So anyway, who cares about that, right? He's been rubbish. What do you do with him? I think the next 2 fixtures are pretty good. And I think you can keep hold of him for Man United away, Wolves at home. Man United away is a weird fixture because defensively, they have not been great this season. And I don't see it as an awful fixture. But sometimes they do turn up for Man City. Sometimes Man City also smash Man United. That has happened as well. But it wouldn't be a complete shock if Man City lose that game or if the score is kept down quite low. But I still think on paper, if we're forgetting about the fact that Man United turn up for Man City sometimes, it's a decent enough fixture. And then Wolves at home in 23 is good. Again, Wolves have had some results recently, but we shouldn't now suddenly say that's a difficult fixture. It's a great fixture for Man City. And there's nothing really to make me think his minutes are going to take a massive dip either. I know Semenyo's coming in. I don't think Man City have officially said that's happened yet, but we know it has happened, or it will happen. And so that's just another attacker to add to the mix. But I think Foden will probably play both of these games and probably play close to 90 minutes. So Man United away, Wolves at home is fine. I wouldn't buy him right now, though. I think when you get to 24-25, he will get sold en masse. I mean, if he's got double-digit returns the next 2, maybe that doesn't happen. But I think he'll still get sold quite a lot in 24. So I wouldn't buy him, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way to sell him. As always, it depends what transfer you're thinking of making. If you just want to take money out of that position, like let's say you want to do, I don't know, Foden to Rice to give you money to get Gabriel in defence. Fair enough, right? Gabriel is great. You'll want him long term. You probably won't want Foden long term. But for most people, if you don't need to sell him, just don't. The next 2 fixtures are good. I know some people are going to think about Foden to Bruno. Fernandes, by the way. That's my plan right now, but it won't be till 24. I think Man United, look, it's great that Bruno's back. He got 60 minutes in the last game and an assist and looked pretty good as well. But it's Man City at home, Arsenal away next 2. There is no rush to go there. Maybe if you're on wildcard to save a transfer, fair enough. But I wouldn't personally make that Foden to Bruno move till 24. So, as always, there might be some cases where it makes sense to sell him for your team. But for most people, it makes a lot of sense just to hold him. Again, think about what I said about Thiago. He's blanked 5 games in a row. Not been great. What's the most likely outcome? That he goes the rest of the season with no returns? Of course not. He's going to get something at some point. Why not against Man United away, Wolves at home? He could blank, obviously, but like I think you've got to almost forget about what's happened. If I told you right now Phil Foden's going to play 90 minutes against Man United away, Wolves at home, you'd probably say he's get something, right? So the price is coming down. That's annoying. You're losing team value. I get it. But he's just a good pick for the next two. So I just mentioned Man United's fixtures there. Man City at home in 22, Arsenal away in 23. What should we do in Matheus Cunha? I know a lot of people are frustrated. Just one goal against Wolves at home, Leeds away, Burnley away. It's not great. I don't feel quite so bad about him because I got on him a little bit earlier. So I've had a few more returns. But still, the next two fixtures are not great. I would say this. He is a very sellable FPL pick. If you've got him and you want to move him on, I think that's absolutely fine. I wouldn't say he's a definite sell. Like, it's not the end of the world if you want to get a bit more information, save a transfer and play him against Man City at home. Obviously, Man City have got some defensive problems right now, but the next two fixtures on paper are not great. And also, Bruno Fernandes is back now, so that's Man United's penalty taker. We were hoping that while he was injured that Cunha would take penalties. Obviously, Man United didn't get any, so it didn't matter. But Bruno will definitely take them now. And also, longer term, I do wonder whether Cunha's minutes might be a little bit worse. I'm not saying he gets benched a lot. He probably starts basically every game for Man United. But there is the odd chance of a benching if everyone else is fit and available. Like, take Mbeumo, for example. Cameroon are playing, I think it's Morocco in African Cup of Nations tonight. And if Cameroon go out, that's Mbeumo back to the Man United team, probably for game week 22, definitely by game week 23. And you have to remember, Fletcher is now in charge. He's played a back four in his first game. There will probably be another manager that comes in on an interim basis until the summer. But I'm pretty sure that manager will not play a back three. So all of a sudden, Cunha played right wing for the majority of the last game, or at least in the first half. That's in Mbeumo's position. What happens to Amad Diallo when he's back? Does he just go on the bench? Does he play left wing? I mean, it's not his natural position, but Man United don't have a natural left winger. My guess would be it'll be Bruno number 10, Cunha on the left, and then Mbeumo on the right with Šeško up front. But then you've got Mason Mount to play at times as well. He could play off the left if needed. So I don't think that Cunha now becomes a massive problem like straight away, but I think his minutes will take a little bit of a dip where he'll get subbed a little bit earlier in some games. He doesn't have penalties either, and the next two fixtures are just not great. But I don't know. I also see a scenario where if you get, let's say you've got a squad with so many problems you just can't sell Cunha for the next two. I mean, you could get to 24 and think, I'll just keep him for a bit longer. I don't think he becomes terrible. I'll say that. But I do think he's quite sellable. And I will probably move him on. If not this week, next week. I've even thought about things like taking a short-term punt. Because I've got 3 free transfers, so I could do Cunha to someone with better fixtures, 22, 23, then go and move to a Chelsea player. But I think that's what I'm thinking about generally, is just moving straight to a Chelsea player, like Cunha to Enzo Fernandez, for example. The problem with that move, I keep talking about my own team quite a lot here. The one thing I'm thinking with that, though, I won't spend that money straight away. And is Enzo Fernandez against Brentford at home like miles better than Cunha against Man City at home? I don't think he is. Like, I would rather have Enzo, but it's not like super important that I do, if that makes sense. That's why I'm saying Cunha is sellable, but it's perfectly reasonable to play him against City. He'll definitely start that game. I'm almost sure of it. Okay, he doesn't have penalties, but I don't know, Man City have got some defensive problems. I'll leave it at that. Very sellable. Okay to keep him one more week if you need to. So ever since we hit game week 20 and were given a new set of FPL chips, I have had so many questions about when to play those chips. And my basic answer has been, let's wait and see what the blank and double game week schedule looks like. Then I'll start thinking about when the best time to play chips might be and the different strategies that we could have. That is still the same answer right now. We don't have anywhere near enough information to start locking in my opinion, when to play chips. They don't all have to be safe for blank and double game weeks, but they are very useful around those times. So personally, I would wait. I would not do anything drastic right now. That being said, there's FA Cup this weekend. There's not a deadline for another 8 days, and there's so many questions. Let's talk about how things look right now. So we will have a blank game week in game week 31. That's based off the Carabao Cup final. So there'll be 2 matches that are not played in game week 31. It'll be whoever gets to the Carabao Cup final plus their opponents. So Newcastle are playing Man City in the Carabao Cup semi-final over 2 legs. So one of Newcastle versus Sunderland at home or Man City versus Palace at home in game week 31 won't happen. If Man City beat Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, Man City and Palace will be a blank. If Newcastle beat Man City, Newcastle and Sunderland will be a blank. Likewise, one of Arsenal versus Wolves away or Chelsea versus Everton away will also be a blank. Now, based off the odds, Man City and Arsenal are the favourites to get through to the final. If that happens, Man City and Palace will blank, Arsenal and Wolves will blank. But last season, we thought that Arsenal would beat Newcastle. That didn't happen. So I wouldn't worry about it right now. The first leg will be played before game week 22. The second leg is played just after game week 24. So we're not going to know for sure who's going to blank in 31 until before game week 25. Now, obviously, if Man City have a 4-0 first leg result against Newcastle, it's very likely they will go through. But if the first leg results are quite tight, you're not going to know for sure. So we will have 2 blanks in game week 31. It'll either be Newcastle or Man City. Sorry, it'll be Newcastle versus Sunderland at home or Man City versus Palace at home. And then it will also be Arsenal versus Wolves away or Chelsea versus Everton away. When will the double game weeks happen? So if a fixture is a blank, gets called off, it has to be moved somewhere else. Now, there is a potential free midweek in game week 26 for teams not in Europe or that finish in the top 8 of their European competition. So you will have seen this spoken about elsewhere. Arsenal will finish top 8 in the Champions League. Wolves are not in Europe. So if that is a blank in 31, let's say Arsenal beat Chelsea over 2 legs in the Carabao Cup semi-final, they get to the final. Arsenal versus Wolves theoretically could get pulled forward to game week 26. What happened last year is we got provisional announcements from the Premier League. They basically said if this team wins the semi-final, they will play a double. They didn't word it like that, but they basically said there will be a double game week in game week 25, I believe it was. So we might get a provisional announcement at some point. When that happens, I don't know. So potentially Arsenal could double in 26. With Man City, for example, they're playing against Palace. We know Palace are not top 8 in their European competition, so that couldn't get pulled forward, right? Likewise, Chelsea versus Everton, potential blank from 31. If Chelsea finish top 8, theoretically that could get pulled forward because Everton are not in Europe. But if Chelsea don't finish top 8, it can't happen because the playoff. So if you don't finish top 8 in the Champions League, the playoff games I think are in 26 and 27. That's why it can't happen. So again, there's not anywhere near enough information right now to make a decision. But in theory, the most likely team to double first is Arsenal because they will be favourites against Chelsea just about in the Carabao Cup. And Wolves are not in Europe and Arsenal will finish top 8. So we could have a Wolves-Arsenal double game week in 26. And for Arsenal, that would be Wolves away and Brentford away. Okay? Most people are on triple Arsenal anyway. So it's not a big problem. And if you're not on triple Arsenal, you're probably figuring out a way to get to it. Okay? What about other blanks and doubles? So there will be more blanks in game week 34. And that is based on FA Cup semi-finalists. So whoever gets to the FA Cup semi-final plus their opponent in game week 34 will blank. Now, if, for example, this is where I'm going off on a bit of a slight, not a slight tangent, or I think it's useful, right? Let's say Arsenal and Newcastle play each other in the semi-final of the FA Cup, then obviously that would just be one fixture off. Let's say Arsenal and Bournemouth play each other in the semi-final of the FA Cup, then Arsenal versus Newcastle and Bournemouth versus Leeds would have to be off. So again, we haven't even had the third round of the FA Cup yet. That's happening this weekend. We're still a long way off the semi-finals, but we know for sure there will be blanks in game week 34. And then I believe the 3 weeks for the double game weeks will be 33 or 36. Which weeks they go into, we don't know yet. It's probably based on other information like Europe and stuff like that. So if a team blanks in 34 or they blank in 31 and it can't get pulled forward, it'll probably go into 33 or 36. Could we have other blanks? Yes. Like if there's a big weather event where there's a load of snow or something that calls a match off, that could also be a double game week somewhere. But most of them are going to be based off the Carabao Cup final and the FA Cup semi-final. Okay? That's the blanks and doubles. In terms of, so overall summary quickly, potential doubles in 26, maybe 27, probably not. right? Not for a lot of teams anyway. Blank game week 31, double game week 33, blank game week 34, double game week 36. That's roughly what it will look like. Which teams are involved, we don't know yet. We need to get the Carabao Cup finalists, and we need to see who gets through to the FA Cup semi-final. Obviously, by the way, the more rounds of the FA Cup that are played, the more information you get. So let's say, for example, in the third round of the FA Cup this weekend, Man United and Brentford both lose. Well, they're playing each other in 34. Therefore, you know they can't blank, and therefore they can't double. Okay? I'm not going to go into any more detail about that. It's only the third round. So what about a potential chip strategy? Again, I got no idea if this is anywhere close to the best strategy, but based off what we know with the blanks and doubles, I think it could work quite nicely. Let's say, for argument's sake, Arsenal double in 26 against Wolves, right? We're already on triple Arsenal, most of us. And if not, you would definitely get to it for a double. And then they would blank in 31. So a potential chip strategy could be to dead end 31. That basically means you only think about transfers up until game week 31 because you're going to wildcard out of it. So for example, right, and again, there's always more detail to it than this because you've got to take into account team value. Do you want the player back on wildcard, etc.? But in theory, let's say team value wasn't a consideration. You would have your Arsenal players for 26. You'd maybe keep them until 31, but then you'd sell them because they didn't have a fixture, knowing you could wildcard them back in 32. There's more nuance because of team value, but in theory, that's how it works. You wildcard 32. You then bench boost in 33 or 36 over the double game week. It's worth saying that if it falls similar to last year, based on what I've talked about as well, there won't be like massive double game weeks where we have loads and loads of teams doubling. So the chances are, whichever week you bench boost in, even if it's a double game week, the players on the bench will probably be single game week players. Because it's very unlikely you'll have a squad of 15 players all with 2 fixtures. There'll be at least 4 players, probably more, with single game weeks. And so that's why I said to someone on the deadline stream the other day, if you've got a really good single game week bench boost anytime soon, I'd be very tempted to play it. I can't remember when I used my bench boost last year, but I'm pretty sure it was all single game week players. And I'm pretty sure that'll be the case this year as well. So 33 or 36. But honestly, if it's going to be single game week players, you could maybe bench boost in a different week. Free hit 34 because of the blank game weeks. And the reason I like that is because the teams that blank are the ones that then double. So you get those. And again, I don't know. This is why it's so crazy to talk about this so early. It might be that free hitting the double works better. It all depends who blanks and doubles. But let's say, for example, that Man City. I'm not a fixture guru, right? But I think I've got this right. Let's say Man City gets to the Carabao Cup final, but they can't have their double brought forward because they don't finish top 8 in Champions League, right? That let's say for argument's sake it goes into 33, but Man City also get to the FA Cup semi-final. That means they have to blank in 34 and have another double game week. So in theory, I think it's possible a team could blank in 34, but also double in 33 and 36. In that case, you'd probably wildcard to get Man City players and just free hit them out in the blank in 34. So it'll be like wildcard 32, free hit 34, and then triple captain in one of the doubles, whichever one you don't bench boost in. That might not be how I play it at all, but that could work. I know a lot of people are talking about wildcard 24, and I know some people are going wildcard this week because they think the team looks quite similar to what it would be in 24, so why not get ahead of the curve? I don't hate it. That could work really well. I just don't have enough information right now to tell you that that's terrible. And in that case, I'd rather be cautious and not blow my wildcard early, because it might be the blanks and doubles falling away where having your wildcard later is just amazing for a lot of points. And so unless your team is in dire need of a wildcard, I would not use it right now, and I would not use it in 24. Okay. Now, by game week 24, we will know. I always think I could probably explain this a bit simpler, but maybe I just can't. By game week 24 deadline, we will know who's finished top 8 in the Champions League. So we will know in theory who could get brought forward, but nothing will be set in stone unless we get a provisional announcement. And even then, we won't have had the Carabao Cup semi-final results completely done. So if the scores in the first leg of the Carabao Cup are tight, you're not going to know who's definitely getting through to the final. Yeah, wildcard 24 seems to be Chelsea players and Bruno Fernandes is a lot of the reason to do it. I think that's fine. I'm not like Chelsea's fixture on 24 to 27 is amazing, right? Please don't get me wrong. I know how good it is. I'm still not convinced it's wildcard worthy. Not when there's so many blanks and doubles to come. I'm really not. Like, surely most people can get to 2 Chelsea without too much issue. Like, again, there will be some people out there that have got a team that needs a wild card, like desperately. I don't think that's many people, though. I think a lot of people are panicking. They don't have Gabriel. Thiago's just scored 5 goals and 2. Like, Thiago is not a reason to wildcard with Chelsea away next. That's absolute madness. And okay, 3 Chelsea is nice, but that can wait till 24. And even then, if you can just get to 2 without blowing your wildcard, that is probably better. So, again, I don't want to sit here and say nobody should wildcard now, because that's never the case. There's always more nuance than that, but most of you should wait for more information. And just don't be so eager to get all these chips played. The only one that I would think about playing soon, if you've got an amazing bench somehow, is bench boost. Because it's one less thing to think about later. We probably won't bench boost with double game week players. I know that sounds confusing, right? Because I've said I'll use it in a double game week. But that's because I will have set it up in game week 32. And the best time to bench boost generally is straight after you wildcard. Because you can just set it up straight away. But it will probably be single game week players that are actually on the bench. That makes sense? So I might, like, let's say I wildcard 32, bench boost 33, like 8 or 9 of my squad might be double game weekers, so they're all going to be in the 11. Okay. That's how it looks. Do I know what I'm doing? No. Is it going to be that strategy I've got on screen? Who knows? So I'm just going to run through some early thoughts for my own team going into game week 22. I know I've kind of touched on it throughout this video, but I'm just going to get all the thoughts in one place. So I've got 3 free transfers and 0.1 million in the bank. And actually, I think my team looks kind of okay this week. It's not perfect, but I don't think I've got a huge amount of problems. And more importantly, I don't think there's a huge amount of players that I feel like I'm missing this week specifically. I'd like to get Bruno soon. I'd like to get some Chelsea players soon. I know Rice is doing really well. I know Bruno G is doing really well, etc. But I don't think any of them are going to make me lose any sleep not owning this week. At least that's how I feel about it right now. I might feel completely different in a week's time. There are some potential problems here. So Paquetá, for example, got subbed just after the 60th minute. And actually they had their 2 new forwards on the pitch at the same time. Maybe that's something that can happen moving forward. Paquetá was not good whatsoever in that match against Forest. But also he was just back from injury. So I'm wondering whether they had to manage him a little bit. So we don't have Paquetá playing 90 minutes week in, week out anymore, but I also don't think it's that likely that he only plays like 60. I think he'll probably go back to like 75 to 80. So I don't see him as a massive problem right now, but if I had like Tavernier, who's nailed for Bournemouth right now, playing 90 minutes most games and probably on penalties, that's quite a nice pick. I think Elliot Anderson has shown that he's good value as well. But I don't think any of those players are must-have, right? It's not essential that I use a transfer to move Paquetá to one of them. And if I was really not liking Paquetá this week, I could just play Elliot Anderson instead against Leeds away and just play 4-4-2. Are Fulham going to get a clean sheet in that game? Maybe not, but he's so good for defensive contributions. And also with Paquetá, after Spurs away, it's Sunderland at home. So I could even keep him for that and then maybe think about selling him 24 onwards. So I don't think he's, like, again, he's maybe a problem, but he's not a massive issue. And I think the same could be said for Szoboszlai. So Bradley obviously picked up an injury. He's going to be out for quite a while. Gomez can't stay fit. Frimpong right now is being used as a right winger. Does Szoboszlai have to play right back in some games now? Possibly. Now, I suspect it will be Frimpong right back and Szoboszlai right wing against Burnley, but it's not a guarantee. So if Szoboszlai's not going to play most of his minutes in midfield, and even when he hasn't looked great. That's a potential problem. But it's Burnley at home this week, so I'm just not going to worry about it. Whether he plays right back, right wing, number 10, I don't really care. It's Burnley at home. And he's on some set pieces. I'm just going to keep him. But he is someone that maybe I need to get rid of. Foden, I'm definitely keeping. Saka, I'm definitely keeping. Saka is weird. He was so good in the first half last night and almost anonymous in the second half. Madueke came on around the 78th minute, I think it was. Saka's weird. I've had him since game week 11. He's actually been pretty good. But at the same time, because of his price and because of what other midfielders are doing, he also feels disappointing. But he is not a major problem for me. And also, by the way, if Arsenal are potentially outside chance going to double in 26, do I want Saka? Probably. Now, there is a chance he would only start one game, depending on the matches around it. Madueke might start the other. But if there's a chance he starts two, I probably want him. I guess the question mark I have right now about Saka, would I captain him? Am I confident enough in his minutes to captain? Because if not, he can go. If I'm not confident enough to captain Saka in a double game week, he probably needs to go. Well, not a rush to sell him, but it's annoying, right? To not be able to captain a £10 million player. So maybe at some point he goes. But I think, without rambling too much, I think my general view this week is I'm not sure enough about what I want to do, so therefore I should do nothing because I don't have many major problems. You know, a few weeks ago I used 3 free transfers to get Gabriel, Lewis Hall and to sell Wirtz to Szoboszlai. I had problems in defence. I needed to get some defenders in. I bought in Paquetá and Wirtz a few weeks, like before I sold Wirtz, I bought him in. I had problems I needed to deal with. I'm okay this week because I've got Anderson Leeds away on the bench if I need him. Cunha, I don't know. My problem with Cunha is I would go to Enzo Fernandez probably. Is he that much better this week? I'm not so sure, but I might sell him, and that would obviously give me some money. But again, I'm not. The thing is, Cunha could become Palmer, and obviously, okay, let me just go into this a bit more. Like we've got FA Cup weekend, I can talk about this a bit more. I could end up with Cole Palmer and Enzo, right? So Cunha could become Enzo, Paquetá to Palmer. And I would need 2.8 million to fund it. So I'm probably not going to sell Thiago for what it's worth, but let's just say I do. Thiago to Mane, and then one more transfer to free up 0.4 million. There's many ways I could do that, right? In fact, yeah. Let's just do Szoboszlai down to Elliot Anderson, okay? I don't know if that's how I would do it, but I could do that if I wanted to. And then Foden up to Fernandez. Now that is, I think, how many transfers is that? Yeah, that's an 8-point hit. So that's 5 transfers, but obviously I've got 3 this week, and I don't need the Chelsea players necessarily till 24. I've got another transfer in 23, another one in 24. That's 5 free transfers. So in theory, if I get no other issues with my team, I could have this team by game week 24 with 0.4 million spare. Obviously, Guiu blocks me from getting Chalobah, but I don't know if I'm that bothered about that. I would like to have Chalobah 24 to 27. My defense rotates quite nicely, so I'm not panicking about that. Yeah, again, I don't think it's wildcard worthy. It's not worth taking a hit to get Chalobah. He's good, but I'm not going to panic about it. So if I'm going to end up with that midfield, in theory, I could do Cunha to Enzo. But what if I end up going for just one Chelsea attacker? Because maybe I'm not confident in Palmer's minutes. Then all of a sudden, maybe Cunha becomes someone else instead. And maybe I've got a better route to get Enzo. Maybe instead, after Szoboszlai plays Burnley at home and Bournemouth away, maybe I just simply do Szoboszlai to Enzo. I don't know. Maybe Cunha becomes someone else. Maybe I just keep him. Maybe he does okay from game week 24 onwards. Maybe Foden just becomes Fernandez. I don't know. Maybe Cunha becomes... Maybe I do Saka to Rice. Maybe Saka to Rice... and I don't go for Enzo and I go for Cole Palmer. I don't know what I want to do. And so I think Cunha to Enzo is a perfectly reasonable move. I just don't know if I'm desperate to do it necessarily. I could just roll the transfer instead. Like, is having 4 free transfers in 23 and not having Enzo this week better than getting Enzo and only having 3 next week? I think it's quite close. Anyway, defense is fine. Raya and I'm more than happy with Raya. That's the nice thing about a double for Arsenal. You know the goalkeeper will play twice. Like Gabriel, Saliba, Timber will all probably play twice, but you know Raya will. And so I'm just going to keep him. I'm not going to use 2 free transfers to move Raya to Timber. I don't think anytime soon. Gabriel's fine. Lewis Hall, Newcastle do have FA Cup and Carabao Cup before that Wolves game. My hope, based on Newcastle fixtures, is that he'll get benched for the FA Cup match. He'll play the Carabao Cup because he's going to play one of these. Actually, it doesn't really matter which one he plays. If it's FA Cup and he misses the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, that's fine because then he'll definitely play Wolves. But anyway, if he misses the FA Cup, which I think he will, That game against City is on Tuesday. They don't play Wolves until Sunday. So I think he would then play Wolves as well. But it is a worry because then they've got Champions League, then Villa, then Champions League, etc. So Lewis Hall may be a problem, but I'm okay with him against Wolves away. And Van Dijk, 2 clean sheets in the last 3 games. Now Burnley at home. Great option to have. So I'm feeling relatively calm right now, but it's easy to feel calm on Friday when there's more than a week till the next deadline. I'll gather some thoughts after the Carabao Cup and FA Cup matches and see if any transfers are different when I do my team selection video next Thursday. But right now, I think I maybe play 4-4-2, Anderson instead of Paquetá. I maybe do Cunha to Enzo. Otherwise, I think the team is fine. I think. And I think it's a strong position going into game week 24 with 3 or 4 transfers when people are thinking about... I think I can get quite close to the wildcard team with 3 transfers. But I should have mentioned this earlier. People are going to frame it that they're going to wildcard, just roll transfers for ages. That's fine. But how many people have got that plan, have blown all their AFCON transfers like straight away? Like, it's easy to say that. I'll just wildcard and I'll just roll transfers. It's not so easy to actually do it. And my personal preference right now is to use all my free transfers in 24 rather than wildcarding to save them, because I would rather just get more information before I pop that wildcard. Like, we've seen it before with doubles and blanks, there is the potential for a lot of points, and wildcard and free hit is a big key to do that. And so I think we had the conversation in the first half of the season. Sometimes it might have been better to wildcard to save your 4 transfers to leave you flexible in the future. This time around with blanks and doubles, I don't agree with that necessarily. But I could change my mind. I could get to it 24. I could have 4 or 5 transfers, and I might think there's enough issues to deal with them with a wild card. Let's wait and see. This is just early thoughts. This is just a massive ramble on a Friday. I'm 7.7. Actually, what is my rank right now? Let me just double check. It is 7,389. So I actually got a green arrow this week with only 58 points. I thought it was on 60. Oh, I think it's because Haaland got a bonus point removed. 58 points, up to 7k in the world. I'm delighted right now. So I'm not going to worry. I'm going to enjoy the weekend off. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to try and not think about FPL too much this weekend. I'm not going to make any early transfers. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to take the weekend off from videos. Tuesday is probably when I'll be back. So I'll catch you then. Enjoy your weekend. Don't think about FPL too much. We'll do it all again next week. See you then. Oh, by the way, like and subscribe, because why not? See ya.